Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We provide fan-oriented and analytic discussion on a variety of animated shows, movies, and anime, currently featuring Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, Miraculous Ladybug, Star Wars Rebels, Ruby, and Adventure Time. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Sam Quattro.
Hey.
And Delaney Stovall.
You.
Today, Sam, Delaney, and I will be discussing the latest episode of Steven Universe. Steven Universe is back. Woohoo! This episode is The Answer. This is the Monday of the Steven's birthday, Steven Bomb. We cover Steven Universe every week here and every time it airs here on the Overly Animated Podcast, and we're recording this immediately after the episode ended. We have seen it. We've only seen it once.
Literally.
And we record it right after. Okay. Overlyanimated.com is where you can find out everything about this podcast, but we got to talk about this. Stepping back for a second, it's hard. There's a lot of excitement about this, and we're probably going to gush about this episode. But for context, this has been, 3-4 months? Has it been that long since the show has aired?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, since like October.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the last two episodes we got were the beginnings of the barn arc, as Ian Jones Quarterly has put it in a post since recently. And he said, it starting with Back to the Barn, and then we had, I'm blanking on the second one, but we had that one. And I think these last two episodes were two of the top 5 episodes of the series.
I feel like you say that about every single episode.
Yeah, no, but these actually were, because there's because these actually were the two most recent ones, Too Far. So we're in an incredible run of quality here, and now we're going into continuing the barn arc. For reference, I'm going to have us try very hard to ignore that this is part of a Steven Bomb, because it doesn't matter and it was not planned like this. So we're continuing with the barn arc here, although this episode could have been placed anywhere, I think.
Back to the barnyard.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. The Answer, all about the origin story of Garnet. Sam, what did you think of The Answer?
It was so cute.
It was so
my
cute.
God, dude, it was so cute. I loved it. I don't know. I'm this Steven Bomb definitely we're getting into sort of what is going on with homeworld stuff and what the lore is, I feel like.
Well, okay, again, ignoring the Steven Bomb though, the past 3 episodes.
Oh my God,
the past 3 episodes we've had the more mythology reveals, I think, than any time in the series, except for the season finale of.
Let me rephrase that. In this grouping of episodes that is happening this week,
okay,
given from the previews,
okay, well, yes,
I feel like it's gonna.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I really like that. I like learning more about this stuff, and it was so cute, dude. Oh.
Delaney, what did you think of The Answer?
Basically, everything Sam said. It's one of those episodes you watch, and I always talk with my hands or do, and I was fanning myself watching the episode, squirming on the couch because it was so cute. It was just ridiculously cute. I think it was a little not what I expected for Garnet's grand backstory to be, but it's perfect, of course, and I am really excited for episodes like these where we get more mythology, and it's very subtle mythology. It's not in your face. It's just seeing scenes like this and seeing Blue Diamond, sitting on a giant pelican, and I don't even know if that's the proper way to say that word.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Is she Azula now? Is that what that is?
She is Azula. I was literally about to say it's Azula, and to see more pearls and more rubies, and it's just great.
Yeah, so this is the type
and it's always great to see Rose.
Yes, we did. That was the secondary thing. Seeing Rose is usually the biggest deal of the week. But very hard.
I thought it was a big deal.
Very hard to evaluate this episode because we've seen it once. I need to see it 5 more times to have a concrete understanding of everything that was revealed. I know this episode is very good. I don't know how good, so I'm not gonna try to rank it yet. But it was very good, and it continues this episode's streak. Now we've had 3 incredible episodes in a row. My biggest thing with the show is inconsistent critical quality, but we have not had that in a while. I agree with Delaney, actually, that this episode still was subtle in its mythology world building, even though it was a blatant flashback episode, which is pretty atypical for Steven Universe. Usually usually things go more according to Too Far, Back to the Barn, where they're just talking and they just happen to reveal stuff. This time it's oh, look what happened 5,000 years ago, right? So this is kind of a first, I'd say. We've had a few episodes like this, but it's more character focused and it's less focused on the homeworld. And this was kind of this is a big deal. I think that because it's so different from what we usually get, that could be a a negative, like a differing thing that puts it away from the rest of the series. Do you think this still felt like an episode of Steven Universe, even though it's like a flashback that took place 6,000 years ago without Steven?
Well, it's definitely not. I would liken it to the episodes about Steven's dad, where we
Yeah,
go
yeah.
back. Like I don't. It didn't feel any different. I don't think it was just. I just enjoyed being shown and not told. Like you said, typically it's they're telling us things about Homeworld, and it's really like blunt just statement. But this, we got to see it, and a lot of it was communicated through the interactions between Ruby and Sapphire. And I think in that way, it's a bit more powerful and interesting to actually. And this is the first time we're seeing we're seeing any gems interacting in a home world in a kind of way. Like, yeah, we've seen Jasper and things, and how Peridot is, but this is the first time actually seeing like homeworld gyms interacting with homeworld gyms like in a homeworld setting. And obviously they were on Earth, but like they were at like homeworld's camp.
I actually think this is if we're gonna get into the whole you should show not tell your story, right, or your things about your narrative. Like I think this is closer to showing to telling, not showing, than the typical way that the show handles it, which maybe sounds backwards, but I think that the show so naturally integrates its world building into what happens that it's like closer to a natural progression of mythology reveal. This is more of a oh, now it's Steven's birthday, we're gonna like blatantly show this flashback.
Yeah.
So I think this is more in the dangerous tell not show area for me. Like I'm just such a huge fan of the way the past two episodes have handled this show's mythology. So like of course this is much different, so I'm going to be more skeptical of this. But I think that what was so great about this was it was very focused on the origin story of Garnet, and that like subtle things like seeing Blue Diamond, although it wasn't super subtle. Just for me, the big thing is like we didn't know that Homeworld gems just had never seen fusion between two separate types of gems.
Yeah.
And that I feel like that was kind of integrated very well here. Let's talk about that because I feel like that's my big takeaway from. I mean, there's a ton of takeaways, but in terms of things we didn't know about other than Blue Diamond's existence, which we like knew, but there's another thing that I want to talk about. I feel like two huge concepts here that we just have never seen before. I feel like Jasper in the season one finale made it seem like gems did fuse, but just for combat.
Well, I I had a conversation with a friend's mom. We were talking about Steven Universe, and we were talking about the kind of like the oppression themes and things like that, and like the persecution that the gems go through. And I had always been my understanding that the problem that Homeworld had with Garnet was because it was a prolonged fusion.
Yeah,
And
that
that
the show definitely also gave that impression, right? Yeah.
and so this episode completely changes that there's a lot more going on than just a prolonged fusion, and that it completely like undermines like how Homeworld functions.
So one thing to note here, and then I'll get Sam's take on this, is that this episode is 5,700 years ago, so things could have changed since then. I think that's important to note. Sam, did this kind of episode kind of distort your perception of how the homeworld thought of gem fusion?
I don't know. Maybe, like you just said, how maybe things could change in that time period. Maybe since the big battle war, whatever that happened, the homeworld sort of realized the strengths and weaknesses, strengths rather, of fusing two different kinds of gems than just one. It's like combine. It's like different powers and stuff. So maybe that was something that the rebels. It's really funny to think of them as rebels, but maybe that was something that the rebels were all doing besides Garnet. Uh, and the homeworld was like, "Oh, wow, that's a good battle tactic."
We're also getting all the Star Wars stuff recently, so Rebels
Well,
is like
they also
So many
began.
rebels.
The Homeworld started like Peridot, her experiments. Like they started to force fusion. So I think that's also that's also something we have to consider, that they took that, and then of course, I mean, it's hard not to liken this to like war crimes. Like that's essentially what it would be. The mad scientists and like Nazi scientists and things that they would do, and that's essentially what Peridot has come off as in the show, is that the forced gem fusions and like what Homeworld has done.
So you think they've like experimented with this since then?
I would assume so. Like I would assume that's where this comes from. It might be more recent, like these developments as they become more and more desperate, but I do think like that's what this comes from, is that at first it's abhorrent and terrible to homeworlders, and then of course naturally science, air quotes in this show. I don't know exactly how they would describe it as science.
Magic and science, yeah.
Yeah, well, Peridot always has come off as like the technician and like
Yeah.
scientist kind of, and how this has turned into, like these crazy experiments and forcing gem fusions.
So yeah, okay. So I think that this episode, it's possible that they'll say after this that this episode like marked the time period of this marked like a change in perception of fusion for the homeworld. Like they finally saw two differing gems fuse, and then that like opens up possibilities.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's all very much a possibility. My initial impression, I think of course this is like we've seen it once. It's right after the episode. I think what they're going for is that things have changed since this point. Because this really does contradict what we know. So I think that like you compare how Jasper talked about fusion in the in season 1 finale to this, and it's very different. So I think that
Lapis fuse with me.
Yeah, like that you couldn't have seen her saying that in this setting in this episode. So I think that things have changed in 5,000 years.
God, can you imagine two Jaspers just like it's like a bigger Jasper?
Yeah, what do you think of that concept of only gems of the same type fusing? And they just become
weird.
Bigger version.
It's
and
weird.
They become a bigger version of themselves. And Ruby also presents it as like she doesn't lose herself in that; she's still just an individual, right?
Well, it's because, I think that goes back to everything we talked about with Pearl and like how these gems aren't themselves. Like that's a sect system, and they like they're all the same. Like they're all identical. It doesn't matter.
They're like it's like a hive mind.
Like Dylan and I like to talk about is Brave New World.
I've never read that book. I was in honors English in middle school.
Yeah, I think that's similar gems fusing is interesting. I mean, we don't have any similar gems to fuse, right? So we wouldn't have seen that before.
Maybe someday.
I do think it's interesting.
Yes, Delaney.
I think it's interesting to get to this point to see things from Homeworld and that. And then to have this narrative where our favorite characters are the rebels and they're not the conformists, and everything we know is I'm air quoting so hard right now, like every other word is air quotes right now, and it's everything we know is wrong according to Homeworld, and that everything we know about the show is from their like how Homeworld would see as their skewed way of living. And I think it's interesting to go back and look and see what like it presents a different narration to the show.
Yes, like we're getting the weirdos and like seeing the norm slowly, very slowly revealed what the actual norm is. And that's kind of this entire show. The other, I think we arrived at somewhat of a consensus on that. The other huge kind of revelation to me watching this was basically how Sapphire was acting like at the end. And like how basically like there's a point where I think Garnet narrating says that Sapphire knew everything that was going to happen in her entire life, but then Ruby made that action and she knew nothing anymore. So like, this is kind of crazy to think about. Like we know Garnet has had future vision and stuff, but she's never been able to see. It's always been presented as she sees like possibilities, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like kind of short term stuff. So Sapphire can just saw her entire life in front of her. The strategy that Blue Diamond had was she called Sapphire in, and like Sapphire told her what was going to happen, and then that's just what happened. This is all. I guess, okay, so the conclusion that I reached is that the homeworld after this episode seems much more hive mind than I'd ever previously thought. It almost seems like the homeworld gems have literal zero free will, and that their behavior is just automatic.
Yeah.
Which is not how I perceived it before at all.
Me neither.
Yeah, that's.
From more like I don't remember what Pearl said about the homeworld, but she definitely did like space. I don't know, but. I don't know, everybody like described as being like cool and like great, and like Lapis was like, hey, I need to get back there. And I was like, oh, whatever. So I didn't expect it to be like worker bees.
I think that this makes sense with Lapis in season 1. Lapis like, oh, I just need to do that. Like, right, that's just
wow.
A little bit.
Well,
she was also like she was afraid of what would happen, but that was a little bit later.
Like it makes it makes a lot of sense that they like when you have something like that's ordered. It's literally Brave New World. Like,
well, so this concept is really difficult, I think, to comprehend. I think some people listening might not agree because we're the only like super intelligent species that exists, and we also have consciousness and slash free will. So what we're saying is that the gems are similarly intelligent, if not more so, but they do not have this individual consciousness. Like this is not something that we have a concept of. It doesn't like make sense in our.
Well, it's like, well, that's what's like. Oh, I think it's weird because how we see the gems. Like the gems are like us. Like there's
They're
no
like
like,
us, and they're also just individuals. Like there's
yeah,
individual gems, right?
which is why they're that's why they're wrong.
I also think this concept is like not fully supported by this episode because we have the three different rubies like fighting with each
Yeah.
other. It's very difficult to wrap your mind around that
Yeah.
being a hive
Well, I think
mind
it's
and,
well, I
and
think it's kind of
exhibiting
like
differing personalities, right?
well, I think it's kind of like it's more of a not they don't want to. Like it never occurred to them that to be different and that it matters to be different and that there's any sort of like joy in being different. And I think that's why I keep talking about Brave New World because it's that idea of like they are different, like they can differentiate between each other, like but then
Right. So obviously it's not actually a hive mind because we
yeah.
have two people break out of it this episode.
I mean, it's the idea of conformity in that they're comfortable and like they never considered not being the same because, and of course, when there's like 12 bajillion other yous and you
Yeah.
all serve the same purpose,
Yeah.
it would never occur to you.
Yeah, I think that you have arrived at the correct conclusion, Delaney, because maybe that sounds like I knew it already, but no, I now agree with you after what you said because this very much goes in line with the themes of the show, which is all about, which is all just about like how societal norms and how society functions. So you don't have to necessarily go along with that, and you can be different and stuff like that. Basically, everything that like I believe in and like very Tumblr point of views, right? And it's like the gem world represents our gem world all of course represents our typical society, of course, and they've been doing this a lot, especially recently. And like so they're not actually hive mind, you're not forced to believe it, but they just never
Yeah.
thought of not being like everyone else, right?
Yeah.
And this episode presents that in a way in terms of fusion, which is like about sex and romance for them, and like and for our perspective and the way we interpret it, we can see it in terms of sexual orientation, and you cannot be the heteronormative norm. Although, of course, for gems, there's no heteronormative because they're all this. There's no different genders.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know if any of that made any sense, but it's like
No, this is literally the conversation I had with my friend's mom.
well, this is not new for the show. This is what we've been having for a while. So it's like, but I think we just need to keep in mind that Homeworld represents our society and conformity in our society.
Yeah.
So once you keep that in mind, you can say, okay, it's not that they're actually a hive mind, and by hive mind we mean they literally just all have one mind.
Like it's not literally a hive mind. It's just a societal norm. Like it's
Like
how
there
their
can be
societies
different
work.
bodies, but they all have one brain. No, they each have their own brain. They just don't. The norms are so strong. The I don't know another word for norm. The norms are so strong that you have to that they just all followed. And like Ruby's, and you can totally see that Ruby's or Sapphire's future vision, which can only see which can't like see certainties, but if things are only ever going to go one way, and like for some reason Gem Society eliminates probability, which doesn't work, but we can assume that, then she would see the one future. But then now that Sapphire's on Earth and there's individuality, which is interesting that Earth represents a breaking of their societal norms, yet their world is supposed to represent our society. That's a little bit confusing. But yeah, it's like it's the same future vision. It's just once she's on Earth and there's different people making different decisions, then it becomes a different type of thing. And there's not
Because
just one future
nobody
scene.
thought differently before. Like nobody like she couldn't possibly have predicted Ruby doing like of completely breaking away from like what was supposed to happen because they don't think like that's not how it works. Like a Ruby's supposed to be a bodyguard and then die or whatever. Like Ruby was supposed to do her job and then Sapphire was like, "Yep, and I'm gonna die. That's how it works." But there was no way. But then of course you come down, you have Steven and Pearl and all the people in Beach City, and it's like, who knows what's gonna happen because everyone's acting independently of each other and they can do anything at any time.
Any thoughts, Sam?
I don't know.
Yeah,
You guys are talking a lot.
It's So, well, something I'm thinking of now is like if Gems never, I don't know, we're gonna get back to the episode in a second. If Gems never considered like any sort of love. I don't. That's not necessarily a conclusion you can reach from this. It's they never considered
Gems
fusion.
can't love.
It's like my point is like
they're rocks.
this episode establishes that Pearl and Rose are first, and so my question is like how does Pearl break free from this before then this big event happens and then they like establish the different gems confused with each other. So like I think we still need to see how what caused this specific Pearl to like develop a sense of love that was like non-existent in their society.
Somebody got to write a fanfic about that.
I mean, that'll definitely be an episode.
I mean, there's already like a lot of fanfics about that, but like an actual like, now that this about like this specific theory of like
you can't just say someone
no free will
about it because so in conclusion, like like Gem Society, there's just no free will because people don't think to be different. I think this episode is very necessary to change our perception of how Homeworld. I mean, we had no perception, we didn't see it presented to us, but we assume it's like us because they look like us. Okay. So we talked like 20 minutes and we haven't even really gotten into the meat of like just the love story between Ruby and Sapphire. So the highlight, I don't know, like the intellectual highlight is what we just talked about in terms of like they break free of like we know that Ruby breaks Sapphire's perspective free, I guess. And then I would need to read the notes, but what's the conclusion that Ruby reaches at the end? She's like, what kind of Ruby am I supposed to be? And then it's all about Ruby kind of gaining an individuality, I guess, which is kind of what both of them are doing. We have to talk about, there's another new mythology concept introduced in terms of breaking, which I don't know if we knew it was called that. Maybe we did.
I thought we did, but who knows?
Breaking.
They were gonna break you. Who cares? There's tons of. Says Ruby. Sapphire. Sapphire had known every moment of her life. Yeah. So the storytelling highlight of the romance that we see is the song, the duet that something.
Oh man.
Which I'm gonna guess I'm gonna guess at the title something entirely new because they said it twice. That seems like an easy one. These titles are never what I think they are. And
we gotta wait for Rebecca.
Yeah, until she posts the demo, then we're not gonna know. Of them singing and like we see a montage of them exploring a very vividly colored Earth. First of all, love this, right?
Yeah, it's great.
So the song was
so good.
The song was kind of weird because it was like actually a song at first, and then it just is them talking, it just turned singing.
Yeah, it turns into Les Mis and like just talking in a musical, like just everything is song.
This is that's kind of a striking device. The show hasn't used it before. Do we think it was successful?
I liked it.
Yeah, it was fine. I didn't bother me any.
If you use me as like a meter of success.
Well, I mean, it's also
in your opinion, was it successful? Then yes.
I mean, like,
did I like it? Yes.
Yes.
There we go. And I think it's also like these episodes are only 11 minutes. Like if it had been like a 30-minute episode, it would have gotten annoying real quick. But
my big question. Oh, well, that's not necessarily that related. I agree. They used it like just short enough. I think. Like,
yeah.
It was
because that can definitely get annoying, and I don't think there's anyone who would be like, no, it's never annoying. Like yes, it gets annoying, but
people like musicals, so I don't know, like that type of musical, but
I like music.
My question is, when we get the full song released, is it going to be like is them talking, singing going to be part of it, or is there just going to be longer singing parts? I think probably longer singing parts.
I wonder if the demo is just going to be Rebecca and Ian.
No, it's going to be Rebecca and Rebecca.
If you listen to what was it called? The Adventure Time one. I'm Just Your Problem demo. Ian is Princess Bubblegum.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's great.
Anyway, back to what we were doing.
Ian, of note, still being credited. I assume he will be for a while. He did leave the show in May or something. But yeah, I think they work really far ahead, so I assume he'll be credited for a long time. What else do we have? Okay, let me talk. Well, what other elements of the Ruby and Sapphire? Was this like everything you wanted as like a Ruby X Sapphire origin story?
It definitely made me feel more for the ship than I did.
Same.
I mean, before, like, it was just like the beta couple, like it was just the given, like, it was, you know.
Well, I think we've talked about this before, Sam, but like everyone was like shipping them so hard after the season 1 finale, and my response is like, these are just two new characters who we don't know. Like, I don't feel
Yeah.
anything for them yet because they're just new people. Like, and since then we had we had something Motel, and that episode really did a lot to get me to care about Ruby and Sapphire.
It was Keystone Motel.
Keystone Motel, and then
Yeah.
this episode was definitely a big step too. And now I feel like I really do care about these characters. So, like, of course, the more you present them, now they have like definable traits like they're given in Keystone Motel, and this gives them like what they were before and what they are after. It's yeah. I mean, what else did we get? What were the highlights? We had Ruby like blushing so hard at her that she like sets the ground on fire.
Yeah.
Aw.
So cute.
Yeah.
I will say this wasn't what I expected.
Why wasn't it what you expected?
Like, and I'm glad it wasn't what I expected. Well, like I loved it obviously, but like what I expected was, I don't know, like when I hear origin like love story, like I didn't like we didn't. This isn't really. This is the beginning of the beginning, and to me, I think that's really the really incredible part about it. Like it's like Korosami. We're seeing like the actual moment, like the end of the episode. That's the moment. Like that's where it begins, and I really love that part about it. Like it's not it really isn't like the love story. It's like the love story for the love story. Like it's the
Oh
beginning
man,
of it,
Delaney,
and I
you
love
just
that.
like you just got me with the feels right there.
Like that's what it is, and I
No,
just
because you just mentioned the thing, and I was like, wow.
like that's what it is.
Uh,
And it just, I think that's really powerful, and I really like, and that's not what I expected, and it's great. Like this is the beginning I wanted. It's not. Am I making sense?
a little bit. Like it's hard to define what is the romance here, right?
Like,
Because in
typically when we're talking about a love story, it's like there's a definable beginning and end, and of course that's what's so great about Garnet's character. There is no beginning or end because it's Garnet. But here it's like it's not the stereotypical love story. It's not like it's not even like it's overt in that it's like obviously we know what's going on, but it's not like overtly stereotypically romantic, if that makes sense. Like it's just them figuring out both who they are and becoming individuals together. And that's what's so beautiful about it. And then
Aw.
and then that's when they like run into Rose and them, like that's the beginning. Like that is the beginning of Garnet. And
well, it's like the beginning of Garnet is when they refuse, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the weird thing with them. It's like the origin story of their romance is not going to be them individually together, although
Yeah.
they were for some parts of this. It's going to be like Garnet existing,
Yeah.
right? So that doesn't happen again until very late in the episode.
I love how Garnet looks.
Yeah, what do we think of early
She-
Garnet design?
She looks like cotton candy.
Yeah.
Why is Garnet's design different 5,000 years ago?
Because I guess they're
Because-
not as like they're not one yet, not completely.
Oh, so it's not their purple. They were just red.
That's what I'm telling. Like it's I'm trying
Yeah.
to get like it's the beginning
Yeah.
of the beginning.
Yeah.
Like Garnet's not really Garnet yet, but she's Garnet.
I wonder if like she just has that name, or if she like came up with it. Like,
Yeah, that's
or
what
the
I was
brothers
trying
gave
to
it to
figure
her.
out.
Like, how does that
So the naming
what I'm
on the
trying-
show doesn't make sense, but yeah, if there's
They're
never
all
been
rocks.
a Garnet before, then she wouldn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, did she just like find like a geology book and they're like that one? That's the one I
Yeah,
want.
the
Yeah.
humans just like
Yeah.
present them with like a geology book 5,000 years ago. Like they go to ancient Greece.
That's still my
Yep.
biggest thing I need to get over. I just need to not think about it. Just that why would they be named?
Dylan, our theory.
And unless me and Sam's theory, which you can search for the alternate Earth theory on our previous podcast, unless that's true, then their naming scheme makes no sense. Anyway, I think this episode does raise further questions of why they look so much like humans and stuff like that. But we can get into that later. So let's go through parts of the episode because I'm missing a ton of stuff. Oh, okay. Last thing before we go through specifics. This episode takes place 5,750 years ago. So it's like the beginnings of the gem colony on Earth. So okay. So my question is, why does this episode take place 5,750 years ago? This is the beginnings of the gem colony, and previous information it says that we were here before humans were here. True? The gems say that? Garnet says that at least, right?
I don't. When was
I'm
this?
sure, maybe.
And she says
I don't
at some
remember
point.
this
So
exactly.
like
This is
this is
probably
not
on.
on our timeline. This is not before humans existed.
Well, this is a bad research paper, Dylan. You need to get a source.
But But Rose and Pearl arguably could have been there
They could have
before.
been there for what, like the 15th? Humans have been here for like 20, 30,000 years or something. But yeah, so they could have been here for a while before. This date is really interesting. The only date that this is kind of close to is like the year it is on the Jewish calendar, which is 5776. That's like pretty close to what this date is. So I don't know if they chose that on purpose, but
What date is that? Like,
yeah, though I don't know what I'm not caught up on my Jewish religion mythology, but I think it's like supposed to be how long humans have existed, right? Because that's because it goes back to the beginning of that. So maybe that's what they're coming from. Not sure if Rebecca Sugar is Jewish or not. Do we know? Sam would know that, but she's BRB. So is this episode claiming that humans are 5,000 years old, or is this just like, I don't know? I think this is not that important. So I don't know.
well, I mean, is that? But then also, like, we know what's inside the Earth. So is that when they put whatever weird thing in the Earth?
Yeah, so you also have to factor in that there's something inside the Earth, and how did they do
So,
that?
like, theoretically, they could have come before and then come back.
They could have. Yeah, that's true.
Like
Yeah.
ancient alien astronaut theorists. Like that's what this is.
Okay, let's start going through the specifics of the episode. I mean, we're already at half an hour, but because I'm not remembering everything. So we're burying one of the biggest points of this episode, which is like we get the most adorable Steven and Garnet in this episode, which we've seen in the preview, but so it's not new, but we have Steven. Is Steven okay? So like this is like Steven's line in a nutshell. This represents his character in a nutshell. Steven says, "Is it morning already?" When Garnet wakes him up. Like, who says that? Nobody
like,
says that.
really?
Only Steven
So
says that. Yeah.
So cute.
Garnet says, "It's midnight. Happy birthday." Yeah.
Also adorable. Wakes him up at midnight on his birthday.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And like Garnet would just be waiting there. We haven't really seen how Garnet. Maybe there's earlier in the series relates to sleep, but like I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Well, we know like the gyms don't need sleep.
Yeah, well,
they
they
just
don't
like
need sleep,
kind of
but
sleep.
I feel like that was more of a Pearl thing. But yes,
Well,
that was
Pearl's
like the
Pearl.
most adorable, and then Steven like pinching her cheeks and stuff like that.
I also did want to point out that we were talking about how this episode like kind of how it might be different, how it doesn't relate to other episodes. Well, the other episode that's like this is when Garnet and Steven go on their like adventure, and like Garnet tells the story. Like that's how these Garnet episodes go. Like they're always like these kind of flashback things. Like,
yeah, it's interesting.
like,
yeah, I think this. Yeah, we need to compare this to the other flashback episodes. That'd be interesting. So okay, what do we think of the group of rebels just being Pearl and?
it's kind of
Rose?
hilarious.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny.
Like, why are they a group? It's just two of them.
It's so good. It's like when it was like when I was in orchestra and we only had one cello, and they're like, "Can the cello section?" We're like, "Do you mean our one cello? Like, can you just say her name?"
I'd always assumed that like there were more of them in the rebels, and they just died off since then. Like I assumed it wasn't just the ones who we know, like Garnet.
Well, this is
Pearl,
before
and
the big
Rose.
war, isn't it? So
This is
it could
before
have
the
just
big
been
war,
them.
yeah. So they could have gained forces since.
Yeah.
So that still could be true.
Could be part of what we were talking about. How like opinions begin to change, like how people begin to see fusions and like how Jim should be, and that's how like the breaking point happens.
Okay, yeah. Next is we got. So I want to point out that everyone's theory was wrong, which was that Sapphire was part of the Homeworld team that came, and then Ruby was already part of the Rebels. Not true, but they're both part of the Homeworld team.
Whose theory was that?
That was like everyone on Tumblr, literally everyone.
You know, they're dumb.
It was
Everyone on Tumblr is like
no,
maybe,
that was I agreed with that theory. That was the logical conclusion to draw from the episode description. But yeah, so Sapphire is a rare aristocratic homeworld gem, says Garnet, which is her. So says her. With the power to see into the future, 3 rubies assigned to her, common soldiers with a mission to.
the fanfic is about to get ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just from that one piece of information.
I like that our ruby was like the non-aggressive ruby. Like that was like the cool ruby.
So cute.
Yeah.
So good.
The preview, like which is like actually a leak, but like it cut off like before we know which ruby it was, right? So that was I like that it's that was the one that was the ruby.
Same.
Yeah. So yeah, they talk about fusing, but we learn that. Like, what do we think of Blue Diamond being in charge of this group, right? So we don't know what the diamonds are, but everyone's like there's going to be 4 diamonds. Was Blue Diamond very big?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you not see her
That's
pelican?
I have to read. Well,
Giant.
pelican doesn't mean you're giant inherently.
She was on a giant pelican, and like you don't even see her. Like she's massive, like especially in
Have we
comparison to
seen?
her
Oh, we need to
pearl.
like put her next to Rose, right, and see who's bigger.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
also, what do you think about that theory that
she was also sitting down. So
Rose's pink
That
diamond?
Rose is pink diamond. I mean, if that, I think this episode goes a long way to supporting that, since
Yeah.
diamonds are giant, right? So
and since like why would they care so much about this group of rebels unless they had like an important leader?
and it's like, yeah,
Also, she has a pearl.
she
Sure.
and she
Instead
has
of the
I
diamond.
think all signs point to Rose being pink
Yes.
diamond for sure.
Yes.
Uh,
Also, still like talking about we were talking about Pearl earlier and like why she's there. I'm still in support of like Pearl is her Pearl, and like then this all just evolved.
oh yeah, no, this
Her
episode
terrifying
totally
renegade
points
pearl.
to, yeah, it's totally her pearl. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was only 2 episodes ago that we learned this.
Yes,
So,
but it feels like forever ago
so
because
close, but because Cartoon Network. Yeah, so okay, we have the prediction, Rose and Pearl attack. They said we are the Crystal Gems, I think, which is interesting because
which is hilarious because
there's 2 of you. Yeah, the
Crystal
rubies fuse. Rose defeats 2 of them. Sapphire had accepted they would fail, but Ruby would not, and then like she pushed her out away and they fuse, and we see weird looking Garnet. Crowds, they never saw a fusion of 2 different types of gems. They call it disgusting and stuff.
Yeah, they freaked
Again,
out.
in line with the societal prejudice like analog. Blue Diamond is upset at Sapphire. Ruby says it was her. You will be broken for this. Yeah, I don't know if. Yeah, I think we probably have used this terminology. I think in that episode where Amethyst comes back a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sapphire jumps with her down to Earth. Okay, so that was my question. Once that happened, was like, were we in the clouds for all this? I didn't even notice that. I guess we were because they were walking on that. But
Yeah,
I
thought we were on a cliff at first.
I never
but
noticed
yeah.
these type of things. But yeah, how are they on clouds? That doesn't work. That's not
Well,
how
it's
those.
because-
I don't know.
Well, it's because they're crystal gems and they can like build platforms and stuff.
Oh well, no, I think it's because they're just projections and they don't have mass. Do
Oh,
they?
yeah.
Do they have mass?
They're holograms
That's a
with
good
mass.
Oh yeah, but they're holograms with mass, said the classroom thing, right? So they can't walk on clouds. I don't know. Maybe they weren't
Newer
actually.
theory.
Well, like it could have been like literally Star Wars, like the Cloud City, like Coruscant. Like
I
they
guess
just, like,
let's say they made something. Sure.
yeah, that's what I'm assuming.
They were gonna Sapphire. They were gonna break you. Who cares? There's tons of me. Yeah, I already quoted this stuff. The Ruby blushed the ground fire. What kind of Ruby am I supposed to be? And then later, you already saved me. I had no idea.
Also, adorable Ruby carrying Sapphire through the rain. Precious.
Precious. I had no idea that's what it felt like. I had no idea you'd disappear like that. That was an interesting way of phrasing it. That like we know that that's how fusion works, right? That you just become a different person. It's interesting how they frame disappearing as like a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never had a third eye before. I never had more than one. We talked about the song. And now you're here forever. We're here together. Oh, and then they do the kind of the, I don't know what to call it, from Stronger Than You.
I like that. That was really nice.
Yes.
But yeah, I literally no idea what to call that thing in music terms. And then they dance in like the rain. It's really colorful, and they're dancing, and then they fuse again.
I got really emotional when they were dancing. Like it was intense.
No, I just need to see the episode again. I was the Rose and Pearl. I was someone, and I didn't know who Rose and Pearl come. Rose Quartz, the leader of the rebellion, and her terrifying renegade Pearl, said the voiceover. I think
Which is so funny.
Is Pearl supposed to be terrifying? Like, is that
Apparently.
how the homeworld thinks?
It's like having like a terrifying chihuahua. Like it's literally what Pearl is. It's
Yeah,
really
I agree.
funny.
How you feel is much more interesting. Says, oh yeah, that's what
Rose
Garnet
just-
said that to Rose, and yeah, that's what Rose said.
Rose
About
just appears to be like perfect.
this episode not doing good to shatter. This episode is not good for supporting my Rose is actually a jerk theory.
Yeah.
I will say that Rose was not a jerk this episode.
Correct.
Not as big of a jerk as you could have
Yeah,
been.
yeah, that's what that was. Yeah, but
Sometimes Rose appears and it's weird, and then other times Rose appears and you're like, you're literally perfect. How?
the more we see of Rose, the less it's plausible that she could have just been a bad person, but like a charismatic one, and that
Yeah.
which is kind of what I still think that's what they're gonna go for.
I mean, hello, look at Steven. Like,
Well, Rose is going to be flawed at some point. Well,
Well,
yeah,
of
that's true.
course.
But Steven is Rose, so
Yeah,
that's
and Steven is
and
literally
Steven is
perfect.
literally the most perfect.
Like,
Yeah.
literally, actually perfect.
Fun Steven stuff next episode, I guess. But um, rather be, I'd rather be and do this than everything I was supposed to. How was Ruby able to alter fate? Why was Sapphire able to give up everything? What am I? Don't question this. You already are the answer. And then Steven's like, what was the answer? Love. Wow, I
Oh,
knew it. So did I.
So cute.
Yeah, that ending was
Steven's-
really good. I also like Steven's
Adorable.
like, I knew that. Yeah,
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 so
it was
so
great.
great.
What do we think of this ending? The answer is love.
Like,
Well, I knew that
oh,
already too.
yeah. Also, like, typical Steven Universe, perfect, so good. This is what I'm here for.
Yeah, me too.
Feels. I literally just got a Garnet, like it's like made of love shirt, and it just makes me happy.
Random, not a random question, but like, it's like, okay, do have Homeworld gens experienced love? Do they have a concept
No.
of love? Would when does Garnet identify what she has, what she is made of as love? I assume it's after this. Like, I assume at
Yeah.
the time she doesn't know what's
That's-
happening.
That's what like this is like the beginning.
Yeah.
Like this is the start.
Was
And
it-
of course, I think that's what's interesting about the timeline is that clearly now that they've been together for so long, that everything like that's what's so great about this episode and having a flashback because and we complained about this a lot in Avatar where we would like find out new pieces of information, they kind of contradicted things. But this, like, given the timeline and everything we already know, nothing contradicts. It's great. Like everything makes sense. Like how Garnet she is the way she is. Like the timeline, like based on the timeline, how long the group has been together, and like everything falls into place.
The Garnet stuff makes sense. Yeah, I think we were talking about a contradiction with the Homeworld's view of fusion. But yeah, that's we already like basically pieced out probably what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to see it again. There's a ton here. Pretty packed episode. But I think I very much liked it. I think it's probably top 10 of the show, but we'll see.
It's amazing.
This I forgot to say this was written and storyboarded by Lamar and Katie. I believe this is their best episode ever. I would have to
I don't know.
check. But of note is that Hillary and Lauren did Too Far, and like I think that's one of the top episodes. And I think it's really encouraging to see non-Joe and Jeff storyboarding teams like having incredible episodes. Like if every episode has the potential to be incredible, then the show can, much improve. Next episode also written by and storyboarded by Lamar and Katie, which is interesting. I never know how does that work because like these are clearly in order. So how do they just have two in a row? I don't know. Anyway, last thoughts, Sam, on this episode.
It was cute. I want to watch it again.
Yeah,
right when we're finished.
Like right now.
Is it up already?
I don't know.
Well,
I didn't record it. I'm a little upset with myself.
Oh yeah, the Tumblr will find it soon enough. Don't worry. Okay, we'll be back tomorrow to discuss Steven's birthday. We have we have what's going on with Steven's gem. We have Steven and Connie. We have all this stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do some stuff.
I'm Dylan Hysen. That's Sam Quattro, Delaney Stovall. You can find more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can support us at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to our current patrons, Shayna, Mitch, Cordell, Beatrice, Nate, Andy, Jamie, and Rachel, a.k.a. Hannah, Fever Mitch, Cordell, University Beatrice James, Buzz Like Your Mailman, and to be determined, probably tonight.
Sam, you have to
Rachel.
Wait,
yeah,
Rachel.
Start thinking.
Oh my god.
Start thinking.
Rachel, okay. I don't know who you are.
She watches Steven Universe, Gravity Falls, Rebels, and now Ruby. But yeah.
All right, Rachel.
I don't think there's any Rachels on the show, so
I'm gonna be on the podcast tomorrow, so I will get back to you, Rachel.
We'll get back to you. Okay. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Let us know what you thought. I'm sorry I was rambling a lot, but this was a lot to process, and we did it right afterwards. Yeah, a lot of the us, which is annoying, but cool. Thanks for listening, guys. We will see you tomorrow for the next episode. Bye.
Bye.